So I had to go through a whole audit, and we passed it with flying colors.
Most of you might have already heard that Umar Johnson's non-profit Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy was hit with a cease and desist order by the state of Pennsylvania. It was news to me that the state of Pennsylvania sent out a cease and desist order against the non-profit. However, what Umar Johnson was doing, the violation that led to the cease and desist order, was not. Initially, when I started doing research on the non-profit back in 2019, this is something I came across, which led to me posting this comment on my old channel, #facts. What we are going to do is break down the cease and desist order, talk about why it was issued and what it means. Also, why this is a big issue and why Umar Johnson should take this seriously. The following article was posted back in April on the City of Philadelphia's website. Department of State announces disciplinary actions against charitable organizations. Pennsylvania Department of State files 16 disciplinary actions against charitable organizations, professional solicitors, and professional fundraising counsel during the month of March, including 11 cease and desist orders to the following organizations. And the Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy is listed as one of the organizations that received a cease and desist order. The article also provides a link to the list of charitable organizations that have been subjected to sanctions or corrective measures. When you click on the link, it takes you to a page titled Enforcement and Disciplinary Actions. And on this page, there is a list of respondents, and if I do a quick search, I can find the Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy. And if I click on the link, I can access a copy of the cease and desist order. Looking at the cease and desist order, it states, Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy, and it lists the P.O. Box address in Wilmington, Delaware, is not registered with the Department of State's Bureau of Corporations and Charitable Organization, and or has failed to submit or requested documentation to the Department of State Bureau of Corporation and Charitable Organization or the Bureau of Enforcement and Investigations, in accordance with the Pennsylvania Solicitation of Funds for Charitable Purpose Act. Hereby orders Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy to immediately cease and desist from soliciting contributions on behalf or as a charitable organization, or conducting any services of personal fundraising counsel or professional solicitors in Pennsylvania, until such time as it provides the Department of State Bureau of Corporation and Charitable Organization with all previously requested information and duly registers or provides information that it is excluded or exempt from registration, as determined by the Department of State Bureau of Corporations and Charitable Organizations. The document also states that the respondent may also be subjected to fines up to $1,000 per violation of the Act, plus an additional penalty of $100 per day each day the violation continues. So what this is saying is that since FDMG did not register as a charitable organization, FDMG is in violation of the Pennsylvania Solicitation of Funds for Charitable Purpose Act. Therefore, FDMG can no longer solicit funds, donations, or do any type of fundraisers in Pennsylvania until they provide all previously requested information and register as a charitable organization or provide documentation that will exclude them from registering as a charitable organization in Pennsylvania. So what is the Pennsylvania Solicitation of Funds for Charitable Purpose Act? The Pennsylvania Solicitation of Funds for Charitable Purpose Act requires organizations soliciting charitable contributions from Pennsylvania residents to register with the Bureau by filing a BCO 10 form, unless they are excluded or exempt from the Act. So if you have an organization and intend to solicit contributions/donations from Pennsylvania residents, your organization has to register with the Pennsylvania Department of State. This has nothing to do with if your organization is registered in Pennsylvania or not. Regardless of what state your organization is registered in, if you intend to solicit contributions/donations from Pennsylvania residents, you must adhere to this statute. This is also a requirement in other states, but we will get to that later in the video. If your organization is soliciting contribution from Pennsylvania residents without a current registration in effect and is also not excluded or exempt, it must file a BC-0-10 form for its most recent completed fiscal year, a copy of its IRS 990 return, and the appropriate financial statements within 30 days of receiving more than $25,000 in gross national contributions or prior to compensating someone to solicit contributions from Pennsylvania residents. So within 30 days of FDMG collecting $25,000 in gross national contributions, the word national contributions is critical, since it implies that the $25,000 does not have to come from Pennsylvania residents only, so it's $25,000 of overall contributions. Back in 2017 on the MikeNice show, Umar Johnson said he collected approximately $700,000.
So this is a three-part question. A is, what's the status of your school? B is, how much money did you raise? And C is, where's that money now?
Okay. And of course, I've answered this 50 times.
51 now.
Yes, sir. I don't mind answering it again only because Connecticut don't get me a lot.
Right.
But I would say, though, and this is not to you, because I don't think you're familiar with the information as much, so I want to clarify that. But you do get tired of answering the same question over and over and over and over again. However, the original goal was to purchase the St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia.
Right.
Okay. That is no longer a goal because I was told that it was sold just under a year ago. I found out about it by accident. A friend of mine texted me, there's a black college for sale. They only want $2 million. I said, just $2 million for an entire campus? Let's jump on it. So it came out of the blue back in 2014. We started raising money for the St. Paul's College. I found out just under a year ago, a couple months ago, that it was sold. I'm now being told that it's no longer for sale, so whatever agreement was in place is no longer there. However, the school has been closed for about 2-3 years now. We have not raised the money that was necessary. We originally wanted $4 to $5 million, which would allow us to acquire the school and also pay for the rehabilitation. Okay, we dropped it to $2 million, which was the basic asking price to acquire the school, but that doesn't give you any extra capital to refurbish the school and get it up to code, because you're changing it from a college to a grade school, and the code is totally different. And because it is a historical school, you got to put elevators in there, fire, water, sprinklers. There's a lot we would have had to do. The $2 million wouldn't have gave us enough money for that. But we haven't raised $2 million.
And for my viewers out there, sorry to cut you off, and your school was going to be kind of like a border school?
Residential academy.
For the young black.
Yes, sir. So now what we're doing with the money we've raised, which is approximately $700,000.
As of today?
As of today.
Okay.
Is we're going to get a regular day school.
Therefore, FDMG should have been registered if Umar Johnson wanted to be able to solicit donations/contributions. One of the requirements for registration is that the organization provide copies of their 990s. If you have been following this Umar Johnson saga, you know FDMG did not file taxes for 3 consecutive years, which led to the organization's tax-exempt status getting revoked. Instead of Umar Johnson getting the nonprofit status reinstated, which would have required him to provide the financial statements for the organization, he created a new entity in Delaware and slightly changed the name. The name of the organization with the revoked tax-exempt status is Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy. And the name of the new organization is Fredrick Douglass Marcus Garvey Leadership Academy. He then filed for tax-exempt status for that new entity. For more information on this, I recommend you watch the following video. Also, if you look at the Cease and Desist Order, it's for the old entity, Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy, the one with the revoked tax-exempt status, not the new one. In order for Umar Johnson to create the new entity in Delaware, he had to submit a 1023 form. Based on that form, he said that the new organization collected $572,409, which exceeds the $25,000 registration threshold. Therefore, if he intended to solicit contributions/donations from Pennsylvania residents, registration would have also been required for the entity he created in Delaware. Because as I stated before, the requirements has nothing to do with if the entity is registered in Pennsylvania or not. If the organization intends to solicit contributions/donations in Pennsylvania, regardless of where the organization is registered, it must comply with the Pennsylvania Solicitation of Funds for Charitable Purpose Act. So technically, he has two organizations that are in violation. There is also a registration fee. The amount varies based on the organization's gross annual contributions. Based on how much Umar Johnson said he collected, the registration fee would have been $250. Then there are the financial statement requirements, which also differ based on the organization's annual contributions/donations. If we go based on how much Umar Johnson said he collected back in 2017, which was approximately $700,000, a review or an audit would have been required. So what is meant by a review or an audit? Well, I'm going to let JT from Pocket Watching with JT explain. JT is a certified financial planner and a licensed accountant.
Okay, make a change. Let me take it from here. What is a review and audit? I'm going to start off with the audit. An audit is an examination of a company or organization's financial records. This examination is performed by a licensed certified public accountant. Now, what are they looking for? They are looking to make sure that the revenue, money coming in, and the expenses, money going out, are recorded accurately for the organization. They use GAAP. It is the generally accepted accounting principles here in the United States. It is their job to make sure that the financial data presented to the public is actually accurate. That is an audit. A review is a lesser form of an examination. It's not as in-depth as an audit is, but you still have a certified public accountant looking through the books to make sure that all the money that came in and the money that went out is actually presented accurately.
Thanks, JT. Please make sure to check out JT's channel. I will put a link to his channel in the video description. So this takes us back to the video clip I played at the beginning of this video.
For those who say, oh, this is a scam, this is a sham, this isn't real, this school doesn't exist, what do you say to those people out there?
Well, one thing I do know is dishonorable people will never let the truth get in the way of a good lie. So when people ask, does the school exist? Well, we're sitting here. There's various governmental agencies you can call or go to online and find out who the owner of these schools are. 2 years ago, I was audited by the state of Pennsylvania Auditor General due to complaints by Negroes who said I was stealing money. So I had to go through a whole audit, and we passed it with flying colors.
So if the organization was audited and passed with flying colors, he should have had no troubles presenting the financial documents to the Pennsylvania Department of State to avoid the cease and desist order. However, it's difficult to believe that FDMG passed an audit when, as I indicated earlier in the video, the organization failed to file taxes for 3 consecutive years, causing the organization to lose its tax-exempt status. I don't believe Umar Johnson will resolve this issue, and a recent video indicates that he does not intend to. He believes that Pennsylvania has no authority in this matter, and that this is just another smear campaign against him.
So I was looking at the Facebook, and you were saying Ifa Tunde versus the state. What's going on with that?
There was a letter that was sent to me from the state of Pennsylvania that called on me to cease and desist solicitations of funds for the FDMG Academy until such time that I send in some of the paperwork that the state of Pennsylvania is requesting. The only issue with that, Baba David, is, as you know, FDMG is a Delaware corporation.
Not in Pennsylvania.
In Delaware.
Wow.
We operate in Delaware.
Yeah.
We are incorporated in Delaware. We do all of our filings in Delaware.
Yeah.
None of our business is handled in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So what that means is we could send in the paperwork, but at the same time, we don't have to send in any paperwork because we are not a Pennsylvania corporation.
Yeah, they don't have no jurisdiction.
No jurisdiction at all.
Wow.
We don't conduct any FDMG business, none at all, in the state of Pennsylvania.
Well, where did they get that from?
Although Pennsylvania I mean, they have the right to say that. You know, they have the right to say that. But what I don't think they are aware of, but we did make them aware of it, is that we don't operate in your state.
Yeah.
We're not incorporated in your state. We're not registered in your state. Okay, and we don't operate in your state. So, again, we could send in the paperwork, but we don't have to because we don't do any FDMG business in the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow, the audacity of
There's
that.
dozens of videos that have been made all over YouTube. As you know, anytime the haters and trolls think that they have an opportunity to destroy my work, they literally have an orgasm. So they've been all over YouTube making videos for the past week or two. And the interesting thing about these Negroes, Bobby David, they know absolutely nothing about what's going on with FDMG. You know, they go online, they find whatever paperwork they can find, they analyze it, they evaluate it, they give their assessment of it, but they don't know anything. Our inner workings is kept strictly confidential. So when people watch these videos, they are simply relying on someone else's interpretation of our reality who has absolutely no insight into what we're doing or how we're doing it. Somebody sent me a video yesterday. Somebody said the school was being auctioned. Somebody said we was being shut down by the government. Somebody said he can't collect no more donations. And everybody was totally incorrect. Okay? Yes, it is true. We cannot solicit in the state of Pennsylvania unless we send in the paperwork. But Bobby David, we don't do any FDMG business in the state of Pennsylvania. So we owe them absolutely nothing.
Wow, that's like if anybody in any state from anywhere wanted to send a donation, you'd have to validate yourself in that state too?
Absolutely.
That don't make no sense.
It's totally ridiculous.
Man.
I believe that it was a attempt to slander and besmirch the name of the FDMG Academy. I think it was a stunt to influence black people away from supporting the FDMG Academy, because if you know that this corporation does not operate in your state, is not based in your state, is not registered in your state, is not incorporated in your state, if you know that all of our legal dealings and all of our legal registrations are done through the state of Delaware, why would you even bother sending such a letter? It doesn't even make sense.
They just wanted to
sure
defame
they
you.
knew that we were a Delaware corporation. I'm sure they knew that. So there was no need to send that letter except to try to put some negativity on the name of the FDMG Academy. But I would...
As I mentioned earlier, the cease and desist order has nothing to do with what state the business/organization is located/registered in. The organization can be registered in any state, let's say New York. But if the organization intends to solicit contributions/donations from Pennsylvania residents, the organization has to register as a charity in Pennsylvania. Another thing Umar Johnson mentioned in that interview, which has no bearing on the cease and desist order, however, it shows that Umar Johnson is either lying or he's clueless about what is happening with his own organization. He said that FDMG is a Delaware corporation and none of the business is handled in the state of Pennsylvania. As I mentioned earlier, the cease and desist order was issued against the first entity Umar Johnson created, the one with the revoked tax-exempt status. Before you can apply for tax-exempt status, you first have to register the entity with the state. Once the entity is registered with the state, you can then apply for tax-exempt status with the IRS. The original entity, Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB Leadership Academy, was registered in Pennsylvania, and that entity is still active. You can look this up by going to the Pennsylvania Department of State website and searching for Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB International Leadership Academy. We see Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB International Leadership Academy, Inc., and the status is still active. Also, even though the tax-exempt status for this entity has been revoked, Umar Johnson is still collecting donations under this organization. If you go to Umar Johnson's website and click on the donation button, it takes you to PayPal, and the name listed is Fredrick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RGB International Leadership Academy, which is the organization with the revoked tax-exempt status. Also, if you go back to the website and click on one of the links, to the Loyal Donors Club, the name listed is also the organization with the revoked tax-exempt status. So it looks like he is still doing business in Pennsylvania. Now getting back to the cease and desist order, here's why I believe it should be a major concern for Umar Johnson. I want to start with a clip from that radio interview.
Wow, that's like if anybody in any state from anywhere wanted to send a donation, you'd have to validate yourself in that state too?
Absolutely.
That don't make no sense.
It's totally ridiculous.
Man.
When the radio show host said, if anybody in any state from anywhere wanted to send a donation, you would have to validate yourself in that state too, then he said, that don't make no sense. I don't think the host realized, but what he stated is actually the requirement for the Charitable Solicitation Statute, and that is a requirement in 40 plus states. So this is not just applicable to Pennsylvania. If you go to the IRS website, there's an article titled Charitable Solicitation Initial State Registration. The article states, approximately 40 states have enacted the Charitable Solicitation Statutes. Although specifics vary, state statutes usually require organizations to register with the state before they solicit the state's residents for contributions. In most states, certain organizations are specifically excluded or exempt from the registration requirements. Although most states exempt similar types of organizations, specific exemptions may vary from state to state. The article also provides an example and references the state of Pennsylvania, which is ironic since Pennsylvania is the state that issued the cease and desist order. Using a website such as Cogency Global, you can find a list of states that requires organizations to register before soliciting contributions/donations. This chart shows the states that require registration in order to solicit donations, and as you can see, registration is required in most states. One of the reasons for this statute, and this is outlined in the State Charitable Solicitation Statute document, is to protect the state residents from charitable solicitation fraud and misrepresentations. The document also states that while most charitable organizations are fine, unfortunately many are fraudulent, employ deceptive solicitation practices, or mislead the public by submitting false or inaccurate Form 990s. So by requiring the organization to register, a resident can easily obtain basic information on the organization by calling a toll-free number or visiting the state's website. This will give the organization's total income for the most recent fiscal year, its total contribution, and how much it spends in 3 key categories: program services, administration, and fundraising. To get an example of what this looks like, you can look at one of the registered charities on the Pennsylvania Department of State website. I think it would be safe to say that most of the contributions that Umar Johnson received are via online mediums. However, the Charitable Solicitation Act still applies. Registration is still required. This is also covered in the State Charitable Solicitation Statutes document. The Pennsylvania Attorney General's office has recently taken the position that charities soliciting on the internet do violate Pennsylvania's solicitation law if they are not registered, because our law defines solicitation as any direct or indirect request for a contribution on the representation that the contribution will be used in whole or in part for a charitable purpose, including but not limited to any of the following: any written or otherwise recorded or published request that is mailed, sent, delivered, circulated, distributed, posted in a public place, or advertised or communicated by press, telegraph, television, or any other media. In closing, I will say this: even though at this time Umar Johnson's organization has not received a cease and desist order from any of these other states that require registration in order to solicit contribution/donation, it does not mean he is not violating the solicitation law. If he's soliciting donations in any of those states that require registration, he is violating the law. Umar Johnson can no longer plead ignorance in regards to this law, because due to the cease and desist order that was issued by the state of Pennsylvania, he is now on notice.